You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers! Step into a world where synagogue secrets, candy store windows, and childhood mischief collide. Daniel Meltz unpacks it all in Rabbis of the Garden State. Please put your hands together to welcome Daniel to the show. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining me on this episode of On the Air with Florenza. And really, thank you for popping on early, because to the listeners, we have had a really good time already before we came on the air. So we're going to try to tone it down just a little bit to let you guys catch up. But before we get started, as is my tradition, we are going to toast to a very successful show. Ooh, red. All right, what you got going on, my friend? What's in that glass?
This is a Cabernet Sauvignon.
No, really, what is it?
No, it's actually pomegranate cherry juice.
Well, mine might look like pomegranate cherry juice, but I'm kind of starting out early. So this is, okay, I'm gonna tell the truth. I combined a strawberry margarita with sangria, a red sangria.
Really?
Some will call it a sangarita.
I gotta try that tonight.
Oh, Lord have mercy. It is a good thing I didn't start sipping on that before we started. I would be slurring.
That sounds amazing.
Now, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I want to go ahead and give an alibi quickly. My puppy just is not going to let me be great, so she's going to be part of the interview. I do apologize. So you tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm going to get the disobedient one right now.
Well, I am, these are poetry, and my first novel published 53 Days Apart at age 67. I'm very excited. I've been retired for 5 years. I spent many years as a teacher of young deaf and blind students. I did that for many years, and I'm fluent in sign language. I taught 15 years sign language, but I switched careers and I became a technical writer. But all through those years, I was writing poetry, writing novels, always writing, getting poems published. And then finally, at this stage in my life, I got 2 books published, and it's such a thrill. I'm so excited about it.
Wow.
And I live in New York City.
Tradition. I mean, that is terrific work with the population for those who are deaf and blind. Like, how did you get on that path? Do you have family members who are deaf, or was that just an opportunity that opened and you found yourself there? Tell us a little bit about how you ended up in that field, particularly.
Well, it always makes you think of the power of relationships, because it was a master's position, and I was like floundering around, and I applied for this job, and the director loved me and I loved her, and they paid for me to learn sign language, and I just took to it. So it was just luck. I mean, as a kid, I used to know this alphabet in fourth grade and make secret messages, but and I love deaf culture. Deaf culture is so unusual and separate and hilarious, and I just like the subcultures.
Nice. Wonderful. What wonderful work. Now, today we are talking about your first novel, Rabbis in the Garden State, and you have a copy of it with you. I had the digital copy. So yes. Love the cover, the whole traffic going in one direction, the other direction. I know we're going to talk about that cover in just a bit, but I want to say, really start with, when I was researching, I saw that your writing has been compared to, and I had to put this down, the works of Philip Roth and Chaim Patuk. What is it? Oh, and it says that it's also your style of writing is wry, almost theatrical qualities. How can you describe your literary influence, and what was that like in terms of bringing all of those together for this project?
Well, I mean, it's funny that they mentioned Philip Roth and Chaim Potok because they are. When Philip Roth, I've read every Philip Roth book. He's one of my favorite writers. He's so funny, so Jewish, and a surprising page turner. That's the thing. I want to write books that you want to keep reading. And Chaim Potok, I read as a kid because I grew up in yeshivas, and he was a big Jew, and when he was also wonderful. He wrote The Chosen. But I started off as a kid. I mean, I wrote stories when I was 5 and 6, and my mother would send them out. But then my reading that influenced me, like when I was a kid, I used to buy books like novelizations of Flipper or novelizations of Get Smart. I just read pop culture. It wasn't until I got older that I read the classics, and those influenced me too. Uh, but again, the thing was when I really became intelligent enough to sort of read for structure, I
Uh-huh.
realized that these great writers knew how to cast forward. They
Yeah.
knew how to, they had cliffhangers. They had great last lines of the chapter. They knew how to end with a bang, and I really wanted to imitate that. And I also wanted, right in the middle of the book, I wanted to have a point where everything turns on its head. Really want to plan that and plot it and have fun with that.
That is so great. And that's so true in terms of the culture that we had. Now, I'm a 60s baby as well. I'll be 61 in a couple weeks and actually a couple months, but I'm trying to rush the process. And there were shows like A Man from Uncle, The Secret Storm. We had The Twilight Zone. We had um Get Smart. We had shows that were so richly developed, and the answers weren't readily given. Like, you had to be invested in the
Mhm.
show to get that reward of the climax. You had to be invested. How important is it for young writers to understand the richness of those cultures, and or to kind of tap back into that so that they can strengthen their own writing styles?
I mean, it's up to them. All these things are out there in the world. I mean, the thing that was to me about was great about that culture. I inhabited the exact same cultural swamp as you, but the thing is, they really again they were really wonderfully plotted, really good characters, but also they were not high and mighty.
Hmm.
They were really pretty down to earth. These stories, they were kind of silly in a way, but I think for young, it depends on I do think the most important lesson I learned in my going to classes and is like I said before, always cast forward. You don't want your story to just sit there doing nothing. And the other thing too is this is something that somebody told me, and I thought it was kind of shocking. But he said the story of a victim is unusable,
Ooh,
and that really stayed with me because yes, yeah, because there are a lot of stories about victims, but the ones that are really great is suddenly when the victim becomes empowered, you know,
yeah,
and that's also I think an important thing in a good story.
I like that. I like that. And one of the things also that came out in terms of the rabbis of the Garden State was your undeniable humor. And you have a way of using humor to balance and tackle those really serious topics. We're talking about some of the themes of adolescence longing, of mental instability, the religious hierarchy, some of the themes that run through there. Talk to us now. You're very comical. I already know that. Is that natural, your humor, that you were able to just plug in there? Or did you have to develop that sense of humor throughout the book?
I mean, I've always I think all the greatest literature has humor in it. I mean, uh, War and Peace has tons of laughs, and Streetcar Named Desire has really laugh out loud moments. So and Shakespeare's tragedies are full of comedy. And I grew up in a Jewish culture where it's always hilarious. People are laughing. You read Mad Magazine. You have Mel Brooks. So you grow up in an atmosphere of comedy. And another thing too, this is something that I always thought about too. Carl Reiner said, "The truth is what makes us laugh." And when you get at something true, a lot of times it's just funny, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I do love it's also a great way to get your message across because you can sort of startle people with humor even in a sad or a tragic situation.
Now tell us a little bit about Andy's mother in in the book. She's very complicated, right? So talk to us about her character and how she fits in through the theme. And just tell us a little bit too about the overall theme of the book. We just kind of jumped right in.
Okay, well, the theme of the book is really it's kind of about obsessive love and the pitfalls of obsessive love, and there's a mother obsessively in love with a rabbi who's a real charlatan, and then her son who goes to yeshiva and he becomes obsessed with his Talmud teacher who's also a rabbi. So these are the two rabbis. One is a little more villainous than the other, but and they're both complicated. But the mother, the mother is part horror show and part, you really feel sorry for her because
Mhm.
she's been abandoned by her husband. She has to raise three kids. She's very frustrated and lonely. She's intelligent but underutilized. So she has all these yearnings and all this excitement, and this rabbi really captures her attention and he grooves on it, so he feeds on it because he's this crazy narcissist, so it becomes very dramatic and flamboyant, and she loves the flamboyance because it makes her feel so special because she's just been so mistreated.
Now, as writers, we're sometimes guilty of pulling a little bit from our real life and putting it between the pages of the book. How much of that is autobiographical? Or do you
Right.
have family members that are like, okay, Daniel, I know you were talking about me, or is it purely fictional? Where are we going with this?
I mean, it's purely fictional in the sense that every line of dialogue is made up, and
Uh,
every
uh,
the way it was plot is made up. But there was, when I grew up, there was a scandal in my town that my mother was part. She was madly in love with this rabbi who took advantage of her. So that was the springboard. And when my mother's dead now, but when I first started writing this, I told her because I said I would like to write a book about this. How would you feel about it?
uh-huh.
He was like, "Sure, go ahead." So I mean, that made me feel okay writing it because it was a really juicy story. It made the papers and all that kind of stuff. So
What would your mother say about the finished product?
I think she would like it because the character is sympathetic. She is very sympathetic. I try to make even there's only one character I think who's not really at all sympathetic, but most of the characters are sympathetic. I mean, otherwise, why write about them? I love all these characters.
Nice. Talk to us about that transition of going from poetry to novel. Did you have any unexpected surprises in that transition, or were you able to just fluidly um, apply yourself to both of those genres?
I mean, I've always written both, and they both have different. They both satisfy me in different ways. Poetry is so much about a burst of feeling or insight, and that I can't wait to get this down, and I don't know where it's going to end up, but it starts with some intense feeling, and then I always want to have a great last line. And in a book, of course, you have to really think about it. It has to stew in your head. I can't just sit down and start writing. I can't. I really like to plot it out and have a theme and all that kind of stuff. The thing that they have in common, though, is that I love language and I love the rhythm of language. And so in the novel, I don't know if people will be conscious of it, but I want to try and make the prose very rhythmic. And I think, is this a mistake? But then I saw Robert Caro, who wrote one of my greatest books, and it's nonfiction. He wrote the book The Power Broker about the horrible corruption in New York, um, you know, urban development. But he said, I deliberately made the prose rhythmic. And I was like, you did too? So it really helps to draw the reader in, I think.
Nice.
Cadence and rhythm.
One phrase caught my attention, and I want to read it. It says, Rabbis of the Garden State is described as swooning, deliciously, romantically gay, a coming of age story set in a religiously traditional setting. Is that an accurate statement? And how does that make you feel in terms of your book baby being received with such glowing reviews?
I mean, it was a thrill, and I really felt seen by that comment because I do think it is there is sort of a clash of cultures because you're in this religious environment that's not very open to the gay world, but it's also, I think, the Jewishness is it is religious, but it's more of a cultural environment, and it's a very '60s environment, and it's kind of this jazzy, sassy way that suburban Jews were back then. So it's really more that than religious. And the other thing too is like when I came out in the greater metropolitan area of New York. It was fine to be gay. It was like there was not nobody's being thrown out of their house. It was after Stonewall. My mother, as a younger woman, she and her girlfriend before I came out was like, let's go to a lesbian group. I hear there's one over in Hackensack. I want to see what that's all about. So it's really more of an environment rather than an oppression or a real, and I didn't stay religious. I mean, it was just more fun to be a Jew and more fun to have Passover and Hanukkah lights and all that kind of stuff. So.
What has been the best review, best comment about either of the projects that you've received?
Um, well, I was lucky enough for the poetry to get a quote from David Sedaris, and that really blew me away. So I had known him many years ago, just tangentially. We were somewhat friends, and then when I was looking for blurbs for my poetry book, I was asking poetry friends. They said, I'll blurb you, but aim higher. Look for somebody big. So I thought, I'll email him. I emailed him. It was many years later. He's like, no, I don't review poetry. So I'm like, okay. And then a couple days later, he said, I found some of your poems online and I really like them. Can I change my mind? And I was like, yeah, sure. So that meant so much to me. He called it bold, funny, and moving. And he's somebody who doesn't even like poetry. So that meant so much to me.
If your book
Mhm.
were to be adapted for a screenplay, who would you want to be cast as Andy and his mother?
Andy is hard because I'm not that up on the young people, but I did see Honora, and I wasn't crazy about Honora, but there was this young actor, the billionaire oligarch's bratty son,
Uh-huh.
and he kind of has the feeling of Andy. I think he might be good at Andy. They might have to coach him with his accent a little. And
Uh-huh.
for the mother, I think, Carrie Mulligan? She played Leonard Bernstein's wife in that Bradley Cooper movie. I think she would be good because she can do anything. She can do
Okay.
anything. She can be funny and she can be tragic at the same time.
What sort of theme songs would go with the book? If just in
Oh,
particular, did you have songs that you listen to? I know you reference different TV shows and authors that kind of assisted and guided you. What sort of music did you listen to during the process?
well, the book has tons of songs in it. So like there's Motown, there's You Can't Hurry Love is in there, and Peter Frampton's "Baby I Love Your Way" is in there. But when you said that was a really yeah, exactly, and it's at such a romantic moment. But when you said that about what song, I get emotional. I
Oh,
think "The Man That Got Away." I didn't even think of
mm,
this before, but it would be such a perfect song for the mother,
yeah,
"The Man That Got Away."
nice. Oh, what has been the most unusual outcome for you creatively or personally through this process? Like, what has brought a huge smile on Daniel's face through
You know
this
what I would
process?
I would say is working with Ian.
Yeah. You know, Ian loves you, right? Like, I was on with Ian before our interview,
Oh,
and
Florenza, you broke up.
oh, I was saying, I said, Ian loves you. I was on with Ian before our interview, and he tried to suck up all the time. I'm surprised he's not trying to dial in.
No, because he was so helpful. And, I have to say, he's, and I don't think he'd mind my saying this, he's somewhat of a hard ass
He is.
because, and in a good way. Oh, I lost you again. Sorry.
I can still hear you. Just keep going.
Okay, okay. No, because when he first read the book, he got back to me and he said, I like this, but it's not. He said, I love it, but it's not ready to be published. And he said because the last quarter, the book was all in the first person of Andy, his point of view, and the last quarter I changed it, and it was no longer his point of view. And he said, why did you change that? And I was like, I don't know. And so I reworked it with his guidance, and that was so satisfying, so exciting to really rethink it. And so that really helped me so much. And he also said, there's two characters, and he said, I see some sexual tension between those two. You might want to explore the course of the book. So he was such a big help to me, and I was so glad I was open to it, because if I were like 25, I would have said, "Oh, go to hell! I don't need your advice." But now that I'm older, he was so helpful to me. So I really appreciate that very much.
Where do you see yourself going creatively in terms of your authorship journey? Do you see more novels coming down the pike? Do you see more um, poetry books coming down, or tell me where you see yourself going creatively?
I want to do both. So I have put together a second uh, volume of poetry that I'm calling Before Your Membership Expires. And I have an idea for I wrote 10 novels over the years. So I had agents here and there, and there were two novels that came very close to being published. And I think if I could combine them, because
Mhm.
one is about a blind person and one is about a deaf person, and I think there's a way to combine them and explore the overlap of those two worlds to make a new book. That's what I'm going to focus on next.
For listeners who are listening in and have not yet picked up a copy of Rabbis of the Garden State, w- what is it that once they do pick it up, you would want them to walk away with? What's that? Everybody has their own individual aha moment, but what is it that you would hope that they walk away with?
I think I would want them to have a feeling of compassion for these characters who were given really difficult circumstances and really tried as hard as they could to not be victims in their own lives.
Mm, I like that. I like that. So, where are the listeners able to engage with you and follow you? I mean, where can they find all this humor?
Well, I have a website, danielmeltz.com. I'm on Facebook, and on Threads and Instagram. So I'm easy to find. I respond to everybody. So I love to meet new people online.
Awesome. Now we've come to the part of our show that I call Last Call. Now, this thing has been rebranded so many times, but I kind of like Last Call. It is simply rapid fire questions that you get an opportunity to answer. Don't put a lot of thought into it, whatever pops in your beautiful mind, which, by the
Okay.
way, you have fabulous hair.
Thank
Um,
you. So do you.
well, my true color is bright, bright white like paper. Listen, my friend is a coloring kid. As a matter of fact, I'm overdue. My glitter is showing. Okay. So, our rapid fire questions, and I had so much fun with these. I just made it all baby boomer questions. So, we are going to show our age and we're going to have fun. All right.
Okay, great, 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 great. Okay.
Okay. What is the first concert you ever attended?
James Taylor.
Ooh. What is the best Jewish deli order? Corned beef on rye, matzo ball soup, or black and white cookie?
Matzo ball soup.
Yes, I love that too.
Yeah.
Who was your biggest celebrity crush in the 70s?
In the 70s, I would say Oy. Oh, I
Oy
just think
vey.
all right. Barbara Streisand.
Of course. Yes. Yes, she was amazing. And
I
Lady,
lost you, Florenza.
oh, it's okay. Lady Gaga has that Barbara Streisand feel to me as well. She kind of has that energy. Um, Fill in the blank. I once got in trouble for
Oh God. For oh okay. For getting naked behind a pillar of the Columbia Library.
what? Was it a bet? Was it a dare? Or did you just fall and hit your head?
It was a dare. It was a dare. It
N-
was a dare.
Nice. Okay. What's a Yiddish word or phrase you wish more people used? What is a Yiddish word or phrase you wish more people
I would
used?
say oy vey's mir. Oy vey's mir, because the full phrase has a little more tang to it.
Uh-huh.
That really means, oh, woe is me.
Okay, I love it. I'm going to have to change the way I use it. And I have not used that phrase in so long. I think I heard you start to say it and my tongue just finished it for you. Um, and our last one, you get one song to play as you walk into the room like a rock star. What's your entrance song?
Oh my God. I would say, you know that song by the New Radicals, You Get What You Give?
Yes,
That's what I would pick. That's what I would pick.
perfect. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for joining me. This has been a lot of fun.
Totally. So great. I'm so happy to meet you, Florenza. You're the best.
Wonderful.
And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.